For humans, before forests and the deep oceans, there was something fragile yet immense, life itself. Imagine Earth 4.5 billion years ago, a boiling, raging sphere. But then the first rains came, not for hours, but for millennia. In the depths of that primordial ocean, in its hottest, darkest corners, something miraculous happened. It wasn't magic, it was chemistry. Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, bonding together. The first amino acids were born, and then the first cell emerged. Tiny, yet from it, everything began. From that single cell, over billions of years, life grew. From one to many. Coral reefs bloomed, strange sea creatures drifted. Then came fish, then reptiles. Each species a step on the ladder, each step a marvel. Then mammals emerged. Earth was no longer silent. It breathed, it moved, it pulsed with rhythm. All evolution pointed to one thing: intelligence. But intelligence wasn't gifted. It had to be earned through time and trauma. From the first cell to intelligence, a journey of billions of years, and yet it was only the beginning. Around 7 million years ago, in what is now Chad, a small creature lived and died. We named it Toumai. Millions of years later, we found its skull, a moment that opened a doorway to our evolutionary past. Then came Auroran, walking more upright, more determined, no longer just climbing. Australopithecus still lived in the trees, but had begun walking on two legs. A quiet step, heavy with destiny. The forest pulled back. The grasslands expanded. They had to stand to survive. By standing up, they saw farther. They avoided predators. They carried their young. They lived in groups, shared food, and perhaps for the first time felt the sting of loss. That was when emotion was born, when instinct gave way to soul. In some distant evening, Artie stood still, watching the sunset, a blade of grass in hand, eyes on the horizon. It didn't know that millions of years later, it would become us.
A dry wind sweeps across the African land, carrying red dust from the heart of the Sahara, once a lush rainforest.
Now, 5 million years ago, it slowly shriveled, retreating to make way for vast grasslands.
Climate change altered the game, and it pushed Toumai's descendants toward a path of life or death. They were no longer tiny creatures confined to the trees. No longer could they rely on soft fruits or juicy bark.
Not just as a choice, but as a necessity.
And with each cautious step, the earth carved them into something new.
Their hands, once designed to swing from branches, now gripped stones. For the first time, a creature on Earth saw a tool, not as accident, but intention. That was the spark, the birth of curiosity.
A stone wasn't just a rock anymore. It became teeth, became claw, became survival. Meat, once feared, was now devoured, and with it came strength and risk.
But this new life came with a price. They were no longer prey, but they weren't predators either. They stood upright, and the world stood wider before them. New eyes saw farther, and what they saw changed everything. Alone, they were fragile, but the thirst for survival led them to gather. Together, they began to form something ancient, something new, a tribe.
From mimicry came memory. From repetition came teaching.
And in a gesture, a gift, came empathy.
Fear made them run. But fear also made them bond. What once was instinct now flirted with intention. Marks in the earth, not yet language, but maybe thought. Generation after generation, the question echoed, what's next? They moved, not just with feet, but with hope. And in the footprints they left behind, a story was just beginning. On a scorched plateau, where the sky seemed to melt the earth below, a new kind of being emerged. This was Homo erectus, the one who stood tall.
No longer clinging to branches, Homo erectus claimed the ground as their own.
They weren't fast, but they didn't need to be. They only needed to follow until the prey collapsed from sheer exhaustion.
It was a revolution, a hunt driven by willpower alone.
But their power was not just in muscle. Something new was forming inside their minds. The ability to plan, to divide tasks, to lead. Intelligence became power.
Women, once sidelined, now rose as leaders. They predicted, negotiated, created.
Society evolved into something complex, with roles, duties, and even injustice.
Then one night, a creature was consumed by fire. And something changed forever.
When they drew near, the scent of roasted flesh hung in the air. One bite, and there was no turning back.
Fire had been tamed, not just for warmth or light, but for food, for community. Cooked food changed everything. Digestion became easier, the stomach shrank, and the brain began to grow.
Their faces transformed. Jaws grew smaller. Foreheads lifted.
And then, they began to tell stories.
Around the fire, they passed on memory of yesterday's hunts and tomorrow's hopes. The voice became sharper. The larynx shifted. Sound transformed into music. Language was the first instrument. And the left brain, its stage.
They didn't just speak. They wove legends.
And then they left.
Homo erectus walked out of Africa, across continents, over mountains, through forests and deserts. They reached Asia, Indonesia, even remote islands no one can explain how they reached. They didn't know what lay ahead, but still, they moved forward. It's our instinct, Ruth, to walk, to know, to touch the world, and to tell its story. And then one day, around 300,000 years ago in Africa, a new kind of human emerged. Not the strongest, not the fastest, but with something no other creature had mirrored.
We crafted, we painted. Not just creatures, but their souls. We buried our dead. Believed in another world beyond this one.
We loved. We hated.
And most of all, we told stories.
Stories that bound millions together, that made us believe in something greater.
We were not just products of genes. We were children.
From clawless hands and toothless mouths.
We could walk on the moon, hunt with reason, dream beyond the sky. We learned to open the heart, not just emotionally, but literally. We became creatures who once stared at the sky and then lived inside it.
This is the story of us. And it hasn't ended.
From the first spark of fire to the dreams that took us beyond the stars, this is our journey, a story written in bone, blood, and imagination. Join us here at Primal Legends. Subscribe and walk with your ancestors, because their story is your story.